Hello everybody, I'm Jarrett Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and on today's vlog, I will be going through MyHeritage DNA's new genetic groups. Just yesterday, MyHeritage DNA rolled out their new genetic groups. So we're going to take a look at my results today as well as my parents' results. This will kind of be a follow-up to my recent video about going through my own DNA test results. So if you haven't watched that, I suggest watching that now, which I'm going to be linking it up somewhere up here. But for those who have seen it, let's go ahead and jump into this. So here's my MyHeritage page, and we can see they have the new DNA updated and ethnicity estimate. So we're going to jump right into mine. So introducing genetic groups. Genetic groups complement your ethnicity estimate by providing you with an enhanced understanding of your origins and a higher resolution breakdown of the places your ancestors came from across 2,100 and more geographic regions. So let's see how well they do it, because there's a few that I have in mind. One big one is, will they be able to determine my connection to the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam? With the rest, I think it'll be pretty generic. Like, you know, I have a lot of family that came from parts of the Ukraine, like Kiev and Odessa. I have other parts of the family which they came from an area that's in Ukraine now, but they considered themselves Romanian on all of the documentation I found, except for a couple of times just as Russian. And then I do have another branch of my family that came from Kishinev, and then a whole nother branch where I'm not 100% sure, but they might have been German Jewish. So we'll have to see what they're going to do. You may hear some barking in the background. My dogs are upstairs, and they're not happy about being locked in one room by themselves. So you may hear that from time to time. But let's jump into this. So, starting out, Ashkenazi Jewish, 84.1%. Now, I do notice genetic groups confidence level. So they have confidence levels. So this is actually pretty cool. This is giving you the ability to change the confidence level to see what their hypotheses are, their less confident hypotheses are. So let's see. So for Ashkenazi Jewish, so right now we're at middle. So let's do a low. So low confidence level. So Ashkenazi Jewish, Eastern and Central Europe, mostly Poland, Germany, Ukraine, Lithuania, Belarus, and Russia. Yeah, that's pretty standard. Poland, Ukraine, Russia, and Romania. Okay, interesting. So maybe that's my family that consider themselves Romanian. Then we do have Netherlands, Germany, and England. So it's picking up on the Netherlands. Let's see what it says when we click on it. Okay, Ashkenazi Jews and Northern Europeans in Netherlands, Germany, and in England, and some of their descendants in northeastern United States. Okay, so in the top places, common surnames, common given names, common ethnicities, related groups. Okay, so pretty standard in all honesty. Let's see what the other one said too. Ashkenazi Jews in Eastern and in Central Europe, mostly in Poland, Germany, Ukraine, Lithuania, Belarus. So it's kind of, I guess they're trying to define it as best as they possibly can. Of course, common surnames, Goldberg, one of my family names. But, you know, I know it's really difficult to do that, because especially you're going to have a lot of people where they're coming from multiple different communities. So it's interesting to see they have one, you know, they're all kind of the same but slightly different. So one, Poland, Hungary, Germany, and Austria. So we can see on the map just all of this like oblong overlays, and, you know, basically if you think of it as a Venn diagram, like right here, that central area where all of them cover, which is, interestingly enough, I would actually think it would kind of cover more Ukraine, but I guess a big part of that is because I have that Netherlands in there and all that. So let's see, Sephardic Jewish, North Africa, which I do know I have connections to North Africa, which I mentioned before, but yeah, I mean, it's really not telling me anything different. Mizrahi Jewish, Iranian Iraqi, just kind of talks more about their history, the areas that they were in. So, very interesting. So, let's see. So, when we go to the middle, so, okay, so it's just taking out one of the genetic groups, and then we go to high, and it just takes out the majority. So, yeah, I mean, it's not telling me anything really that new that's going to be helpful. I mean, it's correct for the most part. Unsure if, that Sephardic Jewish North Africa or this Mizrahi is correct. I discussed that in the last video. If that's picking up correctly or not. I mean, I do know I have Sephardic Jewish, but 9.9% is a lot. So now let's jump into my parents' DNA test. So we're going to look at my mom's first. Okay, so now looking at my mom's DNA test, we're just going to go to low confidence so we can see all of them. And looking at this, pretty similar. Ashkenazi Jewish, a lot of the same thing. They are picking up that Netherlands, Europe, mostly Poland, Ukraine, Germany, England. It's kind of the same thing. Once again, it's interesting how they have these different groups of countries where they're all just slightly similar, but just slightly different. And I'm just noticing, too, this one, Europe, mostly Poland, Ukraine, Germany, England, and Ireland. Which is interesting because, while my family only lived in England for a little bit of time, they did live in England, and there are a lot of relatives who still live in England. So I wonder if that's part of it. Or even, one thing I've discussed in a recent video was my mitochondrial haplogroup, my maternal haplogroup, is H1AI1, and my closest matches, which are a genetic distance of 0 and 1 at the full coding region, they are either of, their maternal line is either of Jewish ancestry or they're of Irish or English ancestry. So it's kind of interesting. It does show that England and Ireland. Going down, Balkan, Italian, it doesn't really have any genetic groups. So I guess all the genetic groups, there's 7, and that's 7 right there. So then all the rest is just kind of genetic, the ethnicity admixture, which we'd seen before. So kind of, once again, nothing super new. So, it'd be really interesting to see someone's results who's not Jewish, someone who maybe has more of a mixture, I want to say, in their admixture. But we are going to jump and see what my dad's results are. So let's see that. Okay, so looking at my dad's results, let's put it to low so we can see all of them. Just 4 of 4. So kind of the same thing. Ashkenazi Jewish, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, Romania, Poland, Germany, Austria, and Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, Germany, and Austria, and then Eastern and Central Europe, mostly Poland, Germany, Ukraine, Lithuania, Belarus, and Russia. So, which is pretty much all of it. So yeah, just kind of the same stuff again. Eastern European, Ashkenazi Jewish. Not defining the Italian in any specific places, which I kind of was hoping maybe it would say, maybe it would give something like, Sicilian or Rome or, Venetian or, something like that, especially with, this is my dad, but on my mom's side, we have a family connection through a couple of lines to Livorno, Italy. So, and then same thing, Mizrahi Jewish, and then Middle Eastern, not defining any further than that, just kind of generic Middle Eastern, and then high confidence, it's just kind of just goes down. It's interesting to see, not super useful for me, kind of telling me all the same stuff I already knew. Wasn't as specific on the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam. I was really kind of hoping that they might have tried that, because in my own results, I've noticed that I find a lot of people where they have that connection, and most of the time I can find how we are connected. But I was also thinking, in Amsterdam, there was the Ashkenazi community, which had been there since the 1600s, and the Sephardi community, which had been there since the late 1500s. So, with both of those there, I was hoping maybe they could tell those apart too. Maybe they would say, you show connections to the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam, or even just Sephardi Jews of Amsterdam. So, in jumping back to my mom's results, with her Sephardic Jewish, it's just defined as North African, which, yeah, there is a connection in our family to North Africa, but Sephardic Jewish isn't limited to just North Africa. So I'm sure they're going to, play, or not play around, but they're going to update this more and more and more. And as they do that, it'll become more precise. And I'm sure another big part of it also has to do with what people on MyHeritage who are doing these DNA tests and are linking to, like, what they're providing through their family trees. Because if there's a lot of people that are your matches who are on here and not giving any information, it's probably going to be a lot harder for MyHeritage to come up with anything. So while I was editing this, I noticed something very interesting that I then looked into, and I thought I needed to add a bit into the video because it really kind of changes things in how I was looking at this. So looking at my results again, we're going to click on Netherlands, Germany, and England. And I noticed this time period, 1900 to 1950. And when we click that, we get all of these different time periods, all basically 50-year increments. And this became really interesting because, first of all, looking at the map, it's basically a heat map. And I realized I believe what they're doing is that they're taking all of your matches that are part of this genetic group and then looking at the places where their ancestors were living in those times. So looking at 1700 to 1750, we can see the heat map. As we zoom in, it gets a bit more finite, is really strong over the Netherlands. So I thought this was really cool because my family in the 1700s, I know a huge chunk of my mom's side were living in the Netherlands, and specifically in Amsterdam. And further, I guess that's as far as we can zoom in, but it's covering it so much you can't even see the name. But looking over here, top places, we have Amsterdam, North Holland, Netherlands. And then it also shows other top places include Germany, England, Virginia, and then Rotterdam. And then common surnames, nothing really special. Common given names, same thing. Common ethnicities, Ashkenazi Jewish, North and West European, English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, and related groups. So going back, let's just take a quick look. So my high confidence, we've Poland, Ukraine, Russia, and Romania, and then Eastern and Central Europe. So let's look at Poland, Ukraine, Russia, and Romania, because as I was saying before, this may represent my family that called themselves Romanian, as well as some other families as well. So top places, New York, United States, Poland, Ukraine. That's what I would expect for this, Ukraine. Well, actually here we're 1900s. So let's go back. Most of these families I'd say are now traced back to the 1800s, 1850s. So let's say that. So we have Poland, Germany, Austria, Ireland, then Romania. Now my family was in the town Sokorani, which is now present day Ukraine, right on the border with like Moldova, close to the border of Romania as well. So let's see. So, okay, so they do have areas of Romania. Is that going to be Yash? No. So, okay, so Chernivtsi, this is basically where Sokorani is. This is where my family, the town is, that call themselves Romanian. Now, I also have ancestry in Venetia in a town called Tulchin, but that's down here. I don't know if that's exactly where Tulchin is. And then let's see if I also had Kiev. Okay, so we do have Kiev, and then Odessa, and then we do have Odessa. But it's all about the same. Nothing really pointing specifically, but it is coming up. But it's just it's one of many. So now a big part of this, I think, will also depend on how many matches within this genetic group are sharing family tree information. So the fewer that are sharing, then I imagine the the more skewed the results may be. But as I was saying, I'm sure as time goes on and they start to refine the results, then they may be able to start having higher confidences with more specific communities or creating more communities. But I think they'd said they already have over 2,100, so that's still a lot to start out with. Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. I do want to give a quick shout out to MyHeritage. While they did not sponsor this video, they did send me a pretty cool swag bag of stuff, which included a whole lot of face masks, including this one, which is my favorite. Just put that on. But they sent me a whole bunch, which is perfect because I have a whole bunch of family members who probably need more masks. But I figured I'd just give them a shout out for that because I thought that was pretty cool. If you'd like to subscribe, you can click right about here if you'd like to do so. It's completely free. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you can follow me at GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger. See you in my next video.